morning, Danny. Welcome back to another episode of LA Fishguys. We're with Dan and Tina once again, wetthumbfrags.net, and we're going to do something different. We're building a koi pond today. So Danny, tell us a little bit about your pond layout here.
Well, we're going to be building a 2,000-gallon pond. It's going to be situated in this area right in here. We're going to be putting in a surface skimmer, which will be going right in this area, right over here. And over behind you, against this wall, we will be placing in a waterfall. And right behind this waterfall, we will be placing the filtration system, which will go back in that corner on the cement. The plumbing will run down through the pond and pick up water from the bottom in the deep end, which will be situated in this area right in here. And then it will also be connected to the pond skimmer, which will help keep the surface of the pond free of debris and leaves.
So tell us, what does a surface skimmer do? I've heard of that in terms of a pool. I've not heard it in terms of a pond.
Well, the skimmer will actually pick up leaves that fall in from the trees that are surrounding the pond. And also, the ponds tend to accumulate a lot of dust on the surface, and the pond skimmer helps to remove that and to filter it out of the water. This also gives you really good surface clarity. And that's what you want in a fish pond, is to be able to see the inhabitants, which in this case will be koi's and water plants.
And koi are best viewed from looking down from above.
That's correct.
So Danny, why that particular spot? Why not over here? And what's involved in selecting the appropriate spot?
When the owners came to me and asked me, or told me that they wanted to put a pond in this area, and they mentioned it, that they wanted it back in this area here. The area was actually a very good place to put it. The reason being is that it doesn't get direct sunlight all day long, and only certain areas get certain amounts of light for a duration of about 4 to 6 hours every day, which is sufficient for water plants and for the koi. The sunlight is actually good for the koi.
So sunlight is an issue. How much sunlight should you want in your pond? Doesn't sunlight grow algae? But then again, the sunlight's needed for the plants.
That's correct. Well, what happens is you want to have at least 4 to 6 hours of sunlight on your pond so that your water lilies and other water plants actually can photosynthesize. And that's beneficial to the pond because the animals in the pond need the oxygen that they produce.
So this pond will have live plants in it, which is something you kind of have to take into consideration before you build the pond.
That's correct.
I'm assuming not only do the live plants need the sunlight, but there might be some means of protection from the fish for the plants?
Yeah, that's true. And one thing I did forget to mention was that the plants also help to take in some of the nutrients which the koi in the pond are actually producing.
So the plants are kind of a natural filter system?
In a way,
okay.
Yeah, in a way. They do help. They probably won't do it completely, but it is a nice thing to have in there at the same time. And they do provide some protection. Of course, if you have herons and raccoons, of course, this will not provide.
So the local wildlife is an issue as well. You've got what? Skunks, possums, raccoons. You mentioned birds.
Yeah.
So the plants are a little bit of a sanctuary, a little bit of a hiding area.
Exactly.
Now, what about depth of the pond? I've heard that can be a benefit as well.
The depth of the pond is really important because it provides the inhabitants of the pond with protection from predators such as raccoons. Raccoons need shallow areas to be able to chase the fish into, and then they can eventually capture them with their claws. Also, the depth of the pond provides thermal protection because shallow ponds tend to get very, very warm. And so with depth, you can maintain a more stable temperature and environment for the koi's. Usually we want to keep the depth between 2.5 feet in shallow areas to as deep as possible in the deep areas, so that the animals are afforded some protection.
So depth is important. Not only does it increase the volume or the stability of the pond, it increases that volume, but at the same time it allows fish to get away from somebody who might be trying to grasp them from the surface.
That's correct.
And you said 2.5 to 3 feet is the maximum depth?
Well, actually, it's not the maximum depth. You can go really deep if you'd like to, and I've seen some fish ponds that were actually 12 feet deep.
Is there a need to go 12 feet deep?
No, not at all. I would say that if you kept it within 2.5 to 3 feet, that would be a
maximum depth,
yeah.
or could the whole thing be that?
That would be minimum depth.
Minimum depth. Minimum depth is 2.5 to 3 feet. So what we're looking at here will be 2.5 to 3 feet deeper.
Yes.
And then this is going to be, what, you said about 2,000 gallons?
That's correct.
Okay, so the waterfall will be up at that end, the surface skimmer will be at that end. I see that's a little bit higher elevation, this is lower elevation. Did that have something to do with your decision as to where this was placed or where the equipment went?
Well, the pump that we're using can essentially pick up the water from this height here, which seems to be about, I would say about 2 feet from the water surface. And it can essentially pick up the water from down below at that level without any problems. But the main reason we're setting it up in that corner is it was the best corner to do it too.
Now, what about this tree here? Is that gonna, it's a lemon or a lime tree, is that gonna, or an orange tree, is that gonna present any problems with leaves falling in the pond?
Well, that's why we have the skimmer. Lemon and orange trees, or citrus trees, don't really shed their leaves as badly as some other trees do. So when this one does shed, it's very little and it happens throughout the year. It doesn't happen all at once during certain seasons of the year.
Take into account the vegetation that's surrounding the area where you're going to want to put the pond. I mean, there's another, looks like maybe an apple tree here, and that looks like strawberries or some kind of boysenberries growing on the fence line there.
Mm-hmm. Well, this apple tree may get moved later on, according to the owner. But if in case it does stay there, it'll just have to be properly trimmed. That will just add another problem with keeping the pond clean, but the owner has agreed to keeping it there. So.
Okay, so we've got the basic location that we want to put it at. We've determined the plants that are around here and how to deal with them. I see this big planter edging here.
Yeah.
You're going to dig inside here. Is this planter edging going to come out?
Well, we had an old tree stump here which was removed last week, and we still need to remove the debris that was left over from the removal. We also have, if you look down here, we also have a small retaining wall that goes all the way across here. And we need to go ahead and remove this, so I'm going to have the guys demolish it and bring it all out.
So come on back for part 2 of the ever-expanding LA Fishguys episodes, now including the building of a 2,000-gallon pond. And this one's going to be built right. It's no longer just a submersible pump and a garden hose poking out of the top of a waterfall. This one's almost got the same style of filtration as a pool.